Little Boys Go to Heaven, written by Stuke and available at Amazon. Part 5 of 25, and she went. Winter 1940, East Texas. Again, I attempted to rush through breakfast with my head bowed to my plate. But this time, my mother interrupted. What's going on with you, Joseph? What have you gotten yourself into? I hadn't been able to look at or say anything to her for weeks, and I couldn't look at or say anything to her then. I just shook my head, got up, and left the kitchen without a word. I knew I had to tell her what was happening to me, but it wasn't easy, mostly because didn't know what I had gotten myself into. A few days later, I found her sitting in the living room with her head lowered to a book. I stood in the doorway for a few minutes, watching her. Either she didn't notice me, or she waited patiently for me to come in. I walked over to her and sat on the ottoman before her chair. I sat right in front of her, not saying anything. Her head rose from her book. She looked at me and said, Joseph, what is going on in your mind? It would seem to be something serious. Now is the time to tell me what has been weighing on your mind. Mama, I need you to come with me. I don't know how to explain what has happened. It's best that I show you. Maybe I can explain things to you afterwards. Please just come with me. With her driving and me giving directions, we started south on the highway that ran past our property. And a few miles later, I pointed to a dirt road and she turned off. She kept her head straight forward, focusing on keeping her head above the dashboard. We're heading to the right, I said. Once we saw the shack, she drew a heavy sigh. We pulled up near a gate that stood nearly perfectly up, dividing a fence that was more down than up. I turned to her. She gave me a look I'd almost describe as terrified. This is it, Mama, I weakly said. I got out and she did also. I didn't knock on the front door. I just opened it as I'd taken the habit of doing. I stood aside, allowing her to enter first. Angie was sitting holding the baby in her arms. My mama went up to them, took a close, close look at the baby. She reached out a hand and placed it on the top of his head. She then turned, looked at me, shook her head, and said, Let's go. My heart stopped. I hadn't expected such a severe reaction from her. I expected her to be at least be civil, but she wasn't. Neither of us said a word on the drive home. She drove with her eyes focused straight ahead. Her grasp of the steering wheel was tight. I don't know how to describe the look on her face. She didn't seem angry or shocked. She just seemed put upon, maybe. I realized what I had taken as my burden, she'd also have to bear. When we got home, Mama entered the kitchen and sat at the table. I stood opposite her, just watching her. She looked up at me, still not saying anything. She got up and entered her bedroom, shutting the door behind her. I went into my room and lay down. I think I just dozed off when Mama came into my room. Joseph, wake up. I don't know what to say to you, Mama. There isn't anything for you to say. You've already said more than enough. You can give her money and make sure she has what she and the baby need, but that's all you'll ever be able to do for them. I won't even ask you how this happened. Good God, Joseph, what have you done? I nodded my head to acknowledge what she had said and what she meant. He didn't know that I had no part in the sin that brought this child into life. My sin was far greater. I couldn't just leave them alone. After I killed Jack, I had no choice but to provide for his child. It was a couple of days before I returned to the cabin. Angie looked at me as I walked through the door. She then went back to her business, which was feeding the baby. She was singing lowly to him. I didn't know the song. I sat at the table in the middle of the main room of the two-room shack. I sat there and watched her offer him her breast and continue singing to him. She fed him and then took him into the next room where they slept. She came out and joined me at the table. Your mama is a pretty lady, she said. I nodded my head yes. You look just like her, she said. She added. I nodded again. You shouldn't tell a boy he looks just like his mama, but I knew there were similarities. I was small like she was. Jack had gotten our old man size. Jack also looked like our old man, with the same dark hair and eyes. I had my mother's fair complexion and light brown hair color. My eyes were a little lighter than hers, but we both had blue eyes. I always looked to my mother for guidance, inspiration, and support. This time she offered me none of that. What can I have you? I said to Angie. I don't think she understood what I meant. She didn't know that I wasn't asking her a question. What do you want me for? She responded. I just do, I said under my breath. When she asked what I had said, I didn't respond. I just shook my head. She rose from the table, walked over to the doorway of the room she slept in, stopped, lifted her dress up and off, stood there naked, looking over her shoulder back at me, then went into the other room. I got up, walked in the direction of her bedroom. I stopped when I reached the doorway. She had the baby in her arms. He was still asleep. She placed him on the makeshift beside the bed. She turned and looked at me. She then got into bed, sliding beneath the covers. I went over to the kerosene lantern that lit the room and put the light out. The room looked much smaller with only the moon to light it. The moonlight cut across the bed, lighting her about from head to about waist. The baby slept in the darkness that took up most of the room. I couldn't hear anything over my breathing. I undressed and walked over to the bed. She lay there still. I got into bed underneath the covers. I got on top of her. I was hard and I was done before I even entered her. I rolled off. We lay there side by side. I felt good. Even though I knew I hadn't really been with her, I felt good. I reached over and placed one hand on her stomach. She put her hand on mine. I fell asleep. Mama began to give me more money after she met her grandson. Before, she would give me pocket money every Friday morning. She never called it pocket money again. She'd hold the money out to me and I'd take it. She couldn't look me in the eye when she gave it to me. She never asked about the baby, her grandson, but she cared, I know. She was doing something for him. And she was in my every thought. Her body, it was only a few months after the baby was born that her body was as firm as it had been when I first saw her. Every time she disrobed for me, I'd see her again like the first time I saw her naked at the river. I'd sit and just watch her undress, just as Jack and I had done that night. That earlier night she was prey for Jack, and later she offered herself to me. I was a sorry-looking little 16-year-old boy when she first laid eyes on me. She was almost a head taller, and her body was a woman's body. She shouldn't have wanted any part of me, but she needed the money I gave her. I told myself I had more to offer than the money, but I didn't. Still, I always felt we both enjoyed the time we spent together. Things were good for us for a short while, Angie, the baby, and me. I was visiting every day almost. I stayed the night if the next day's activities allowed. Then my mama decided I needed to take a wife. I knew she wanted to get me away from Joey and Angie. She didn't put it in those terms, but it was clear to me to see. I was 17 at the time, engaged at 17 to be married at 18, and I didn't resist her. Taking a wife seemed trivial to me at the time. I don't think my mama knew either of their names, Joey and Angie. Mama's inherited money gave her options when she began to look for a wife for me. She looked to our church for a suitable girl. She was open about her plans for me. Everyone in our church knew. I was too preoccupied to notice what a joke I had become. Mama's father had money. She had nothing when she married my father. I understand a man wanting his daughter's husband to provide for her. Her father died, and as his only child, she inherited everything, a large stake in the bank in town and large stakes in other businesses in town. Our lives didn't change. She spent next to nothing of what she inherited. She continued to live the life God has given me. She never said what she thought God had given her or why she thought that. I just took it to mean she was mad with her father and his money. I finished high school and began working in the bank my mother partially owned. My title was assistant manager in training, meaning I did nothing and had no responsibilities. I could not have shown up and no one would have noticed. I was an 18-year-old with no work responsibilities. I had more money and I gave Angie more. She had to have been getting more than she could spend. I hope she saved some of it. About a month after the wedding, I told Angie about my marriage. She had mentioned my visits had become less frequent. I first told her I was becoming involved in the family businesses, which took up most of my time. When I finally told her about my marriage, she didn't say anything. She just turned away. I told her I'd come by when I could, but it couldn't be more than once a week. She nodded her head. Still, she wouldn't say anything. I don't remember ever seeing her smile again. She used to smile a lot, but she never laughed out loud. I heard somewhere that people who never laugh out loud have no joy in their hearts. And when a person laughs out loud, you're actually hearing joy. I never believed that. I laugh out loud all the time, and God knows there's no joy in my heart. Things were never the same between us, between Angie and me. I guess I should have known they couldn't be. I could feel that she was tolerating my presence more than desiring it. I'd come to convince myself that she had come to welcome my visits, but I can admit to myself now that was never true. I had nothing significant to offer her, just a trifling amount of money. She was getting by before she met me, and she probably would have been able to get by if I had never forced my presence on her. Finally, her quiet tolerance of my presence ended. She asked me, "Why are you still here?" I didn't have an answer for her. I could have said I still came because I loved her and I needed to see her, and she was all I had. That would have made matters worse. I couldn't have put it in a way she could have accepted because I couldn't put it in a way that made sense in my own mind. I loved her and still, I wasn't really with her. She continued, "Maybe you should stop coming by here. Maybe you should just leave us be." I still went by. I would knock on the door and she would greet me with a heavy sigh. We would sit quietly. She began to grow thin. She was always thin, but I could see that she was losing weight. I think she knew she wouldn't have to tolerate me much longer. She'd sometimes look at me and then turn her head away without saying anything. I tried to stay with her through the night several times. She didn't want me there. She stopped talking to me a couple of years before her death. I still remember the last words she ever said to me. "I loved you so much." I didn't respond when she said that. There was such resignation in her voice. There was such disdain in her voice. I stopped going by. I had their doctor, the colored doctor, go over to see her 4 or 5 times. She wouldn't see him. She said she didn't need a doctor. There might have been a simple remedy for her. She said all she needed was her Bible. I told myself she was punishing herself, punishing me for what we had done, for everything we had done. I spent 2 years sitting in the parlor of my house in my easy chair with a drink in my hand that I had just lowered from my lips, waiting for some word of her. I was waiting for some word of her passing. I would have done anything to save her. No, I guess I really wouldn't have. What more could I have done? My mama's words kept running through my mind. All you'll ever be able to do for them is give them money. Angie had made up her mind. She was ready to go, and she went.